Let's get started. So welcome everybody to the first live GrainWaves podcast with Gabe and Rodney. I am Rob Lowenthal. I am going to be the MC and making sure that your questions get to these two knowledgeable folks and getting out of the way shortly to let them chat. But just a few things before we get started. So Gabe and Rodney are going to have a free-flowing conversation about grain marketing plans, very similar to their podcast that they've previously done. Same witty banter, same knowledge, same entertainment value, only this time you get to see them. There's going to be a Q&A at the end, so feel free to submit your questions using that Q&A chat logo at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And in terms of intros, Rodney Connor, he's a senior director in our global markets team. Spent 15 years of experience trading grain. He's been with Cargill, with Growmark, now at Indigo. And he still lives near that farm he grew up in Dwight, Illinois, as his shirt shows. And Gabe is our Senior Vice President of Global Markets and Pricing. He too has a lot of experience, also spent a good chunk of time at Cargill, and while he doesn't like to admit it, Gabe made it to Harvard, where he explains he only got in for football. He's got experience in behavioral finance markets. That's why he's on this podcast. He's the guru. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Rodney and Gabe.
Yeah, that's great. For anybody that hasn't listened to podcasts before, Gabe and I, grew up, 40 miles apart, maybe, Gabe?
Yeah.
About
a year apart.
A year apart. Both worked at Cargill. And when I took this job, we decided we had been in the same room maybe like 4 times during our career at Cargill.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Interacted quite a bit, but didn't spend much time together. Hey, the other thing I want to mention here before we get started too much is this is not an Indigo pitch, right, Gabe? We're pretty deliberate around. We're here to help guys, think differently about how they market their grain. I don't even see an Indigo logo in my background. It's just GrainWaves, just us.
I turned around to look at it because I didn't believe the video.
Yeah, I can see my own. So I think Gabe and I have had the opportunity to work with people much smarter than me, at least, to help build out products that, match up with the kinds of thoughts we have. So I think some of the stuff we're going to talk about today may be embedded in stuff that Indigo is looking at, but I want to be clear up front, we're here to talk grain marketing and however you choose to do that. Fair?
Yeah, what Rodney said. No, that's the, cool. Yeah, I think education's always been a passion for both of us in this space. Yep. And I think a common theme that we hit on is it's a lot easier when you're not the one in the middle of having to make the decision to think about how to make the decision. And that's so a lot of what we're doing is do what we say, not what we do, because when we make those same decisions for ourselves, we fall in the same traps. Yeah. But yeah, it's around the education piece of it. And some of it's just interesting to talk about and think about.
Yeah. So, don't be afraid in the chat to submit some questions if you have questions as we go along. I think Gabe and I actually prefer that, right?
Yeah.
But that's what's unique about this opportunity here. I have a 15-year history of sitting across the table from farmers, talking to them about grain marketing. I'm most comfortable when I'm at a place talking about what's available in the marketplace today. So, Gabe, I didn't tell you this ahead of time. I picked a place in the United States, so we're gonna be at that place here.
Are you going to tell me where it is, or do I need to guess?
No, I'm going to tell you. Harville, Illinois. Ever been to Harville, Illinois?
I haven't even heard of... Wait. Is it Haverhill?
Harvel.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right.
So I had not heard of it until this morning, but I picked it. I was just looking for an interesting place to think about, right? So Harville, Illinois happens to be around 30 miles from... one of the elevators whose basis is significantly worse than last year for corn, right? So I just said, hey, where in the world is corn basis just not very good, right? It was also interesting. It sits between St. Louis and Decatur, so it has a few different markets that affects it. Obviously, I'm prone to Illinois. It's also Ray Schulk was a catcher for the White Sox,
Okay.
raised in Harville, Illinois, and he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Inducted in 1955, a little before our time.
Do you just have the Wikipedia page up? when you're reading
Wikipedia,
it?
yeah. I just looked it up, so that's all I know about it. But anyway, between Decatur and St. Louis. So that's where I want to kind of hone in on today.
Okay.
So, all right, what's the first thing we should be thinking about when we're looking at a marketing plan?
So first you said where basis is way lower than last year, and then you said where basis is bad.
You caught me.
Yeah, I caught you.
Actually, basis is pretty good there. That's what's interesting. So basis, I look back at some historical values here. So we're talking corn basis, Harville, Illinois. I kind of filtered for the region here. Basis is a little better than average. So fall basis for corn down there tends to be about 30 under on average. And we're about 7 cents better than that. So averaging about 23 cents under for the region.
Did you just do that in your head?
No, I've got some tools here.
You got that already done.
However, it's significantly worse than it was last year, kind of throughout the whole year. So
what was it last year?
That's a great question. I averaged December delivery, and it averaged around 30 cents worse than it is today.
30 cents better.
Last year was 30 cents better, correct? Yeah.
Okay, so we're a slight premium to the market.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Weird. That's weird, isn't it?
Seems a little weird. So I think remember a lot of that corn from Illinois was pulling east last year, trying to fill that hole in Indiana, Ohio. There's some ethanol plants down to the east there that I'm sure were pulling hard to keep that grain away from St. Louis. So it makes sense. It's kind of anecdotal, but that's where we sit. So you talked to farmers lately, Gabe?
Yes, I did. I do. I talked to a farmer in Nebraska the other day. Old friend of mine. He was complaining about the farm subsidy program.
Oh, what didn't you like about it?
The last one that went out. So it's funny, as you and I were talking a week or two ago about how the farm subsidy stuff that's come out first from the trade deal problems, and then now with COVID, like it's always a tough line to walk, right? Nobody who values hard work likes a subsidy. At the same time, like, pretty weird situation. So it seems reasonable, right, that there might be some extra help out there. But one of the things that I think you and I appreciated about the programs that were coming out, and like that was a change that had been made probably about 10, 15 years ago on the crop insurance side already, was that farmers weren't getting punished if they had done a good job doing grain marketing. That's right. So the most recent version of that assistance doesn't pay out if you set prices before January 1st or January 15th. And it's not even just prices. It's like if you did anything to help mitigate risk. That was crazy. So this guy, he's pretty advanced grower out there. He's on top of his game, and he was pretty frustrated.
So, that's good. So actually that one it had more to do with stocks on farm. So it didn't have anything to do with price, really. It was you're paid on stocks that you had on farm on January 1st. What's interesting is anybody who was really paying attention to the marketing saw that the market was inverted or at least flat, and probably marketed that grain and shipped it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Right? Did you pick up on that?
No, what I read it as the grain, if you had set price on it before Jan 15th. That was the version of the rule.
I gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, some nuance there, but yeah, I don't like anything that punishes somebody that made the right decisions or made some decisions.
Right. Which, what's the order for ideally make the right decision, then make the wrong decision?
We talk about it a lot.
No decision. Yeah.
Hey, I talk about guys being long corn forever. I mean, a decision is better than no decision, I think, right? Yeah. Assuming that decision is not to buy back corn.
Right. Okay. Or buy your neighbor's corn.
Yeah.
Go extra long. So I don't think that was the direction you were hoping I would take you.
No, that's all right.
But so let's go back to Haverhill. Am I saying that?
Harville. Yeah.
Harville, Illinois. So basis this year about 30 cents less than last year, roughly.
Yeah.
But better than it has been on average.
Yep.
Over the last handful of
A
years.
few cents better. Yeah.
Okay. So if you were talking to farmers down there, what do you think that conversation would go like?
So I've told you about my stockpile of pages in a notebook that is just how much does it cost you to raise an acre of corn or beans, right? Mm-hmm. So over and over and over, I've done this math for 15 years. What did your guy in Nebraska think about the price of corn when you were talking to him the other day? Was he excited
right now?
Yeah, was he excited?
Is he excited about? No, man, he's not excited about it.
Okay, why is that? Why do you think that is?
Well, just in general, right? He's again, he prices a lot of stuff ahead of time. That's why he was complaining about the subsidies, and the way they're being paid out. But now he's looking at 2021, 2022, and even though they're not terrible compared to what cash prices are right now, he's still not excited about setting some of those levels. But I think he's built up some good habits around pricing stuff early, so he's probably going to do some anyway and just not feel good about it.
Yeah, right. Good. Yeah, so cost of production, I looked up Farm Doc, right? So just to see about what anybody's cost of production was. About $721 an acre on corn down there.
Okay. So Farm Doc for everybody is University of Illinois. They publish a ton of information on cost of production, and so you can get down to the county level from those guys, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So my experience working with farmers, I would start every conversation saying, "Hey, Mr. Farmer, what's your cost of production?" And what's the answer to that? Have you been around for that?
It's either I don't know, or it's generally a number way higher than you would ever think.
So those are true. Usually it's like, well, it depends on yield, right? Like that's what it comes down to. It's like it depends on a number of factors. So what I found useful over the years is if I just go to Farm Doc and have that number ready with me, and he says, I don't know, and I say, actually, I think it's 721, he immediately responds, no, it's 639, or like whatever, right? Like,
right,
so I think they have a better handle on it, maybe. Yeah. But if you don't have a good handle on it, the first thing I would do is go to Farm Doc, look for something that remotely fits your operation. The nice thing, so this is Illinois, obviously, depending on the state you're in, all the land grant universities would have some study on this. The nice thing about these is they break out each individual cost. So, if a guy's looking at these, it doesn't just show you this 721. It shows you, hey, we think rent is this, we think, tillage is this, and all the way down to seed costs and everything. You can tweak yours if you want, but man, anybody that just looks at that number, that's a good starting point.
It's a good starting point, yeah.
Yeah.
You can start to do some math then.
Yep, I love my math. So also, they're using 212 bushel acre for a budget.
Ooh.
Yeah,
right.
So good ground.
Good land there, yeah.
Yeah, I think. So when I do the math there, I also look to see for new crop corn down there in Harville. This is interesting. I didn't pick it for this reason, but according to Indigo's kind of math, the best bid's like 100 miles away from that farm.
So what do you mean by best bid?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing for best bid is I'm fobbing back those values. So I'm saying, let's simplify it and use Decatur and St. Louis right now, right? So if you're in Harville, Illinois, your corn is going to tend to flow either to St. Louis or Decatur. You may not actually ship there. There's a lot of times there's some middlemen in the middle that provide some value that cuts you off from going there. They're going to store it, whatever that is. So if I'm a farmer in Harville, Illinois, one thing I'm going to do is look at least two bids every night, Decatur and St. Louis, and I'm going to know what it costs me to haul to each one of those places and take their delivered bid, subtract what I think it costs to haul there, and get what I would call a fob value, right? So that's the real number that hits my farm. I've got it here. Let's see. Yeah, so that I'm sure we're heading to St. Louis for that. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, we're heading to St. Louis there. But significant trucking. So I'm showing a delivered bid there of $363 cash for fall.
Okay.
Not bad. I mean, it's a premium market.
That's the cash price at the buyer.
That's right. So keep in mind,
yeah,
if you are a farmer I totally understand if you're in Harville, Illinois, and you're 100 miles away from St. Louis, right, or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, I am not asking you to haul grain to St. Louis in the middle of fall. I get upset, when the truck isn't, like, when I have to park the combine for like 3 minutes to wait for the truck. I can't imagine what it costs
Driving
to haul
100
there.
miles, yeah.
Yeah. But it's still a useful tool, right, to help understand which direction I'm going to be looking at, especially when we're hauling out of the bin, right? The math is all the same.
Yeah.
We talk about this thing a lot called the suck factor, right, which is not it's not a good term for what I'm talking about, right? But there's some other factor, for hauling grain 109 miles to St. Louis in the fall.
Well, I know, especially if it's East St. Louis, some of those delivery destinations are rough getting to, and yeah.
Rough getting to. There's, so if I had to send every truck 100 miles to sit in the harvest line in St. Louis, my harvest progress might be a little slower than I'm used to.
Yeah,
so like if I was going to do something like that, I'd have to calculate in how much field loss am I getting. Freight should already be calculated at a commercial rate. It's the time, the extra time, like the guy that I'm paying to sit in the auger cart, for 4 hours while he waits for my truck to get back.
Just to come back.
Thing. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, calculating 49 cents freight to this place, fobs back to my place at $3.14 cash, right? So I would say we see this a lot. When we're doing that calculated math to these destination bids, it, even though $3.14 delivered St. Louis is the best price, the second best price could be $3.12 delivered 5 miles away, right? Where my cost of transportation is essentially zero.
Right.
We see that a lot. So what do you think profitability on corn is, just based on conversations you've had for a grower right now?
At around $3.15 cash?
Yeah.
That feels like it's just above break even.
So based on what we have here, 212 bushel per acre, $721 per acre. It comes to negative $55.
Okay.
Right, so guys losing about $55 today.
And what about crop insurance payments and the other stuff?
Yeah, so that's what I love about the complicated math with doing business, in this environment. So actually, December futures right at 335. Literally the worst case scenario for the farmer right now.
Yeah.
Not really, right? So
right.
We shouldn't say that. It's a revenue-based program. So as it sits today, if I think I'm going to raise 212 bushel corn and the price stays at 330, you're exactly right. No payout, right? This is about the worst I can do. If the market were to go down, I want to understand how my crop insurance is going to work in that situation. If my yield stays the same and the market goes down, I actually am triggering an indemnity payment that's going to raise that, or what, however you want to put it, raise the profitability.
Sure, it's going to give some premium back on your acres. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah. So I talk to a lot of farmers, Gabe. Every time I do this math for them, they can't believe that. They think they actually think it's much worse than that. And I'm sure that you have a reason on why they think it's worse, right? Like you know how these guys think, right? Like,
right. Well, I think so. So it's easy to think it's worse for a lot of reasons. One of them simply being it's a lot lower than it's been in recent history, right? It feels at this point in the year it's a lot lower than it's been. I think that's an important qualifier. And so while if you give somebody a number to react to on a cost of production, like it's difficult to think through that. There's like you start to list out, there's a whole bunch of components in there. And so it's hard to hold that all in your head at the same time. And that's why I said, when I ask that, when somebody gives me an answer, a lot of time it's actually a lot higher because we tend to round up.
Yeah.
Just being a regular human, we're conservative in our decisions and our assessments on those types of things. And so when you marry what feels like, because it is, right, a relatively low market price, all the assumptions, like I doubt they were getting tons of discounts in terms of what their seed cost or FERT cost, or they weren't seeing a lot of money come back on those input costs because this happened probably after most of those decisions were made. And so without sitting down and writing it down, you've got lots of reasons to, when you add things up, back of the envelope style, to get into a real bad spot real quick. I think that's where it goes, right? It's hard to think about at this moment in time, not seeing like a 350 number for new crop corn and feel good about it, right? And let's be clear, a $50 loss per acre is not something to feel good about.
Nope.
But hope is closer than it probably feels like. I mean, and then there's a whole other stack of things, which is when you imagine something being bad, you always imagine it being way worse. Like the emotional impact of that is way worse than actually living in it. My favorite experiment there being, I forget the actual numbers, but they asked people who were blind what they would pay to get their eyesight back, and they asked people who could see what they would pay to not go blind. And the people who could see would pay 2 to 4 times as much to not go blind as the people who were blind would pay, to see again. So, once you accept a thing that's bad, it's almost never as bad as you think. And also, that puts you in a position to start building out of it.
Yeah.
Right. So you can hitting a bottom sucks, but once you hit the bottom, you know where to go then.
Yeah. And I would say, I think calculating this break-even price is super important right now. And I think guys, I remember a time when guys were pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. And then, $6-7 corn happened for some amount of time. And guys got lax at it. I mean, guys literally quit doing it, right?
Well, it was basically through about 2005, right? Like we saw pretty good discipline, and then it got crazy, right? Like, because to your point, you don't have to do the math at $7.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
So
you still have to pull the trigger, which was sometimes hard.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah. So cool. So we got that far. It turns out, based on this is $3.40 break even for this grower in Harville, Illinois, if he's raising 212 bushel per acre. That's 24 cents away from where we sit today. Find anything interesting about that 340 number, Gabe?
No, I feel like I should, but I don't.
I mean, so we've looked at this in a number of different places, and 370 futures appears to be the sweet spot for farmers, right? Mm-hmm. So just about anywhere you are in the country, just because basis is kind of a reflection of transportation and cash rent and all those kind of things. 370 futures appears to be the sweet spot for most guys. Yeah, right, and that would be the case here. So, rule number 1: know your break even, so we can make a real decision here. The next thing I'm always interested in that I think farmers know they should do break evens and they don't do it that often. The thing they don't do as well as they should, I think, is calculate that cost of money, cost of interest, cost of holding grain, right? So I've got a spreadsheet as normal, but what should a guy use for cost of money today?
Well, if you're buying a house, I guess it's 2%, but
yeah, if that's the alternative, right?
Right. Yeah. I think I would guess around 5 to 7.
Okay. What if I'm bullish equities?
What if you're bullish equity? Oh, okay. Oh, Rodney. Let's say 12 to 15.
Have you checked your 401k like in the last month? Things changed. Yeah, things changed.
Yeah.
So I think this is where I always struggled a little bit talking to guys is like, hey, what's that cost of interest? What's it cost? And you usually get an answer somewhere between 0 and 5%, right? But I also, I'm quick to point out to guys like, hey, if you have a car loan out there at 9%, then really like it is 9% until you pay off that car loan, right? Or
That's
some
right.
version of that. So I like to use 5% just talking to farmers, but I really like to ask them, what that is and really hone in on that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so fun at parties.
Yeah, well, it's just mean to ask somebody what their cost of money is, and they go, "Well, what if you thought the market was going up?"
So what's interesting is most guys have a number in their head, right? And they say like, I remember corn was 2 cents and beans were 3 cents, right? Like they just had that number. I don't know where that number comes from. I've never been able to replicate any like those values at the same time using some cost of money, right? Like,
yeah, I'm trying
beans
to
are just more expensive.
beans are more expensive. Well, I mean, it might anchor back to early 2000s.
That's true. When they were a little more disciplined, perhaps.
Well, and the, you could get beans down into $7, right? I think I saw a 6 handle. I'm racking the brack in my brain.
Oh yeah. The year that beans went to like $18 there for a little bit, or $16. I remember.
You hear stories for years afterwards of guys who missed 18 and left beans in their bin for 3 years waiting to see that again.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it was just one guy that everybody heard about, but I heard that story over and over again.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath for that, I don't think. But I do remember Dad, he drives a truck, and he realized, he did the math real quick and was like, my insurance doesn't cover how much value is in these beans, right? They like essentially, forever he had insurance for like $9 beans, and then suddenly beans were twice as much. And I remember just he had to up his his insurance coverage.
Insurance level.
Truck, yeah.
So I'm just realizing we've been at this about a half hour now. So I think the initial walk away from here, you made clear, know your break even.
Yeah.
Right. And start. So right now it feels like from a futures perspective, that's probably around 370.
Yeah.
And so what are some? So let's pretend that's you, right? And that fits most people. So okay. So we know that. What should I do now?
Yeah. Good question. So the reason I'm looking at the cost of money is because I want to understand, hey, can I get there on some futures curve? Right? So like,
what do you mean by futures curve, Rodney?
So will the carry in the market pay for the cost that I'm gonna, take on by holding the grain that long? Right? So I actually did it here real quick for back to this Harville, Illinois. If corn is worth $3.14 today, I'm talking in October, right? At a 5% cost of interest, $3.21 March is exactly the same as $3.41 or $3.14 October.
Okay.
So it drives people nuts when I say that. Like I'll say, $3.21 is $3.14, right? Or even worse, $3.21 is not higher than $3.14, right? Is not more money than $3.14, and that's because of the cost of money,
holding
right?
it,
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to look at is like, hey, I like 370 as a futures reference point, so I might go ahead and put in an offer today to sell some corn if we got up to 370.
Okay. And you can probably do that anywhere. Yeah.
I can do that anywhere. What's that mean?
Well, I just mean you can give an offer to just about anybody to sell some grain. This is me calling back to the fact that we're not selling ourselves this time.
Are we going to sell ourselves, or what's the deal?
I don't think right now.
Okay. Yeah. So you can do that.
But I think that's the point, right? Like we do that, but that discipline, that approach is applicable broadly to anybody as you're trying to figure out how do you manage through what is right now an incredibly frustrating situation, right? So getting your hands around like where is the bottom, starting to make some decisions, but also putting yourself in a position where if those opportunities present themselves, you don't miss it because you were sleeping.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly right. Yeah. And so it feels a long ways today away, right? 370, we're at 340 roughly. So we're 30 cents away. One thing, that's inside a limit move.
Yeah.
Right? That's inside limit move. 30 cents.
Today? 30 today? All right.
They changed.
I thought they backed them down to 20.
It might be 25. You might be right.
All right.
So, what I don't want guys forgetting about is that overnight market. I have bought more grain in my life in the middle of the night than during the trading session during the day, for sure.
That's when the market's thin and like the weird stuff happens and you got to work your orders. I want to go to Rob. One, I think we should call him MC Rolo.
That's a good idea.
Thanks. And two, see if he's got any questions for us.
Yeah, a couple. One thing you guys were talking about were break-evens, and you've talked a lot about decisions on the crop marketing side, but on the break-even side, there's that cost that can be controlled. How do you guys think about that during the season? in terms of managing profit?
So, the same source Rodney talked about in terms of seeing cost of production, as the U of I and the farm docs there, they run a study every year comparing basically the top, middle, bottom third of farms by profitability in Illinois. The amazing thing to me is it's not that cost doesn't matter, but that is a very tiny part. Like you need to play a tight game there, but at the same time, the difference in costs between those three levels is immaterial. And in fact, there are times where the cost for the most profitable farms is actually higher than the lower ones, either because they traded that off for a higher yield, or the actual biggest impact on a farm's profitability is the revenue. So is the price that grain gets when it gets taken to market. And so it's natural for us to want to focus on cost. And again, you have to play a disciplined game there, where you're running a business. But at the same time, we tend to over-index to that part of the formula because it feels like it's something we have more control over. Because we do. But at the same time, the difference that it makes is trivial compared to the market itself.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add to that is managing that yield as you go through for that marketing plan, right? Like, so today, if I'm in Harville, Illinois, I'm using 212. If this corn pops up and looks really good by the 4th of July, maybe I'm using 240, right? Mm-hmm. And that changes everything. So now I can compare that price to that 240. And, where I see guys do this really well are these guys that, will make a decision in August about putting fungicide down, right? If that crop is looking really good, price is still hanging in there, and it feels like, hey, I'll take a 8 bushel yield bump, or at least take a chance on an 8 bushel yield bump, and lock in that price at the same time. That's good. That's how you make more money and raise your cost, because you see an opportunity and you take advantage of it. And then those years that it's a little skinnier than we're used to.
180, 190.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying I'm going to play the crop insurance game that well, but I will remember that I have a revenue-based insurance policy where, at this point, if we hang out at 330, less yield is really not going to hurt me financially because I have crop insurance covering me. Right? I want to look at that revenue opportunity.
That crop insurance brings you back to whole. I think it's also important to note, crop insurance never gets you better than you wanted to be.
Nope.
But it keeps you whole up to that revenue level.
Yeah. You would always be better without crop insurance, right? If you knew the future, right? So if you... Look, crop insurance is just like options. If I know that the highest price came in February and I'm going to have a good crop, right? I just don't take crop insurance and sell it. Yeah, easy. And if I knew I wasn't going to raise a crop and corn was going to go to $9 or whatever, I would just go long corn.
I just want to put that on the wall, like something like Rodney says, this would all be easier if I could just see the future. By the way, farming's easier when you can predict the future.
Yeah. Also, Rodney says, don't take crop insurance, while he tells everyone 85% crop insurance every time. Yeah.
Yeah, let's be clear. You should buy as much crop insurance as you can. I will say that's the other strong correlation when you dig into those numbers is the most successful farms actually buy up to the highest levels of crop insurance, because that gives you the most stability in your revenue and allows you to plan further out, not just for this year, but the years ahead. So
yeah, not to mention
people not to buy crop insurance, Rodney.
Not to mention, Gabe, when we're talking about crop insurance, we use it as a put, right? An implied put, and it's a subsidized put, right? So it's the cheapest form of price protection you can buy. That doesn't mean that you own a put on 100% of your crop and now you can walk away and do nothing. Because what we love about revenue protection on crop insurance is you aren't held back because you did a good job marketing. It's just top of that marketing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that clarification, guys. One more question we got. You guys mentioned if 370 futures is a good baseline. How far out should we be looking at this point?
2027.
Yeah. Yeah. Always sell. Always sell. Right? So you are long for the rest of your life. Full stop.
Because you're a farmer and you farm till you die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking out at, so we said 370 is, roughly break even. That's according to Gabe and Rodney's rough math. again, that's fall delivered cash, right? That's what we're backing into. So, we're staring at a 3.5, 4 billion bushel carryout in corn this year. I'm not advising on spreads or anything, but I do feel like we're going to see carries in the market like we've never seen before, or in line with carries that we have seen before. So, I'm not too afraid to sell 370 or 380 December futures if I've got some storage, right? I can, maybe carry that out a little farther. It just helps me lock in a price that's, 30 cents better than we're at today. I'm not going to get crazy at that price. Like, I don't love locking in break even, but I'm sure going to start building that marketing plan that says, hey, what about 390, right? Am I happy with 390? And if so, I'm going to put that order in and get it working.
So I think it's important to note, right? Like, we don't have views on what direction the market's going to go. And so it comes down to the reason you want to do that baseline understanding of what your break even is because that puts you in the position to make profit-based decisions as opposed to trying to pick, is the market at the right place to sell? So if you come ask me, Rob, if you say to Gabe, is 370 the right price to sell at? Well, what you're really asking me is for December 2011 futures, is that going to be the high?
Yeah.
Right. Or 2021 futures. And I don't know the answer to that. But if you say, hey, if I sell there, I lock in a profit of $20 an acre. Like I don't know if that's good for you, but you should know if that's good for you, right? Is that right for your business? And if it's not, that's cool too, because now we can figure out, okay, it's 390, right? Like, because you can kill yourself worrying all day about, well, what if we go to $8? Could happen, right? Like, I don't know. But like, if you're managing to profitability to the levels you need, that's that's in the same way that it's easier to focus on cost because that's more in control. It's actually easier to focus on profitability because that's but you don't have to pick the right time to sell. You just have to hit the level to lock in your profitability.
Good answer. You didn't fall for predicting the future.
Which would, just so everybody's clear, that makes things easier. If you know the future.
Was that bait, Rob?
That was you. That was you that said that.
Trying to sneak those questions in. Well, I think we're a little over time, so I think it's time to wrap it up. This was, you guys did okay for the first live podcast.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, MC Rollo.
We'll continue to improve, but above average.
All right. So like a 3.5 out of 5.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Before we wrap up for everyone on this Zoom, if you have any further questions, we wanted to share with you our grower account managers in each region that would be happy to follow up with you. So I'm not going to say every name out, but give you a second to skim these names and slides.
Are you worried you don't know how to pronounce Ron Winter? Is that?
Yeah, that was basically it. That England always gets me too. All right. Any final words, guys?
No, thanks for everybody who came and hung out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It's been good.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Gabe. Good to see you.
Thanks, Rodney. See you, bye.